Chris Eubank Jr. responds with genuine empathy, and it resonates because he's lived through moments like this himself. Fighters understand what it means when your body and mind are suddenly put at risk outside the ring. His words highlight the divide between real-life experience and online theatrics, and right now, that gap is swallowing reputations whole. And this isn't over, because resentment like this doesn't fade quietly. It builds, and eventually it explodes when no one expects it. Even while shaken and injured, Tony Bellew speaks about Anthony Joshua's character, and that's where respect truly locks in, because even in chaos, Joshua represents something solid and grounded. When you place that beside the swirling controversies around the Paul brothers, it creates a moral contrast fans simply can't ignore. You can feel the narrative hardening, calcifying into something that will follow people for years, deserved or not, and that's terrifying. Meanwhile, whispers about alleged FBI scrutiny refuse to fade, and caution is necessary because investigations run on facts, not emotions. But perception can be just as damaging, and right now, perception is radioactive. Every old feud, every careless post, every past stunt is being re-examined under a microscope. It feels like there's still a missing piece, something not yet public, a detail that could split this story wide open when it finally emerges. Reports say 2 officials in Nigeria were involved in the crash after the vehicle struck a stationary truck during a lane change, a horrific accident. No one wants to assign blame without the full report. So here we are, suspended in tension, Anthony Joshua recovering and grieving, the boxing world holding its breath, Logan Paul and Jake Paul under a cloud of suspicion, fair or not. The truth remains buried in paperwork, phone records, and quiet rooms. And it feels unfinished. Stories that begin like this rarely end clean. They end with shock. And the next update could change everything. Saris wrote, "This is an unimaginable loss. 2 incredible people who were not only part of AJ's team, but also friends. My deepest condolences to their families and loved ones. Anthony Joshua, wishing you a full and speedy recovery." But the endgame already feels written, and it's ugly, because if this keeps spiraling, the fallout won't just damage careers, it will erase legacies. Hours before everything collapsed, Anthony Joshua was laughing with friends and planning future fights, while rumors spread that Logan Paul and Jake Paul were suddenly under alleged FBI scrutiny, and that's when everything changed. The moment feels unreal, because a single crash has shattered the entire boxing narrative, and every powerful name connected to it is now anxious, silent, or hoping this situation doesn't turn into something darker than anyone is prepared for. It's shocking. Someone even remarked that if he had been wearing a seatbelt, the outcome could have been far worse. A disturbing thought, but that's how fragile the moment was. The tension rises further as reports suggest Anthony Joshua's accident has sparked questions no one wanted raised. And while fans expected silence or prayers from the Paul brothers, their posts came across as cold, distant, almost careless, and that's when the mood shifted. In this sport, timing means everything, and bad timing can look like guilt, even when it isn't. There's a lingering feeling that someone out there knows more than they're saying, and that's when stories like this start to turn poisonous. People close to Joshua are urged to be there for him and his family, ensuring he receives the best medical care and that his loved ones are protected and supported. Anthony Joshua is fighting to recover, and the entire combat sports world feels the weight of it, because this isn't hype or promotion, this is real loss and real blood. When Jake Paul's reaction appeared online, it didn't feel supportive, it felt distant, as if he was already bracing for the fallout. Fighters sense energy better than anyone, and the energy felt wrong, heavy, unsettling, like a storm waiting just beyond the frame. Reports confirm that Anthony Joshua was injured in a car accident where 2 people believed to be his close friends tragically lost their lives. Condolences pour in for their families, prayers, grief, shock. Then Logan Paul posts his tweet, and the atmosphere shifts again, the tone far too casual for a tragedy this severe. Comments flood in, accusations, questions, speculation. And because the Paul brothers already carry controversy, people begin connecting dots that perhaps shouldn't be connected, but once they are, they can't be erased. That is where the real danger lies. In stark contrast, Oleksandr Usyk steps forward like a true champion, responding with respect, compassion, and humanity. It feels like two worlds colliding, one grounded in honor and empathy, the other trapped in optics and algorithms. And the difference is loud, painfully loud, forcing everyone to question who truly belongs in this sport when things turn dark, and who only survives when the spotlight is bright and profitable. The spotlight is bright and profitable for some, but reality hits harder. There may or may not have been someone inside the stationary truck. That part isn't confirmed, so it can't be reported. What is clear is that Anthony Joshua's SUV collided with a truck that wasn't moving. Joe Rogan's reaction cuts through the noise. He doesn't sensationalize it or chase clicks. He simply faces the truth. Joshua survived something that could have ended everything. And the silence he brings feels heavier than shouting, because it reminds everyone how close this was to becoming irreversible. While others speculate, he's thinking about injuries, scans, and the fragile line even the strongest heavyweights walk when metal and speed collide. Eddie Hearn's response shows what leadership looks like under pressure. He shields his fighter, protects the families, and keeps the focus where it belongs. Watching that beside the Paul brothers' online behavior is jarring, almost embarrassing, because it exposes the thin line between responsibility and opportunism. And here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. That line is about to be tested in public, and someone is going to fail it. The human cost grows heavier when names like Liam Gaw emerge, describing the loss of Joshua's close friends. This is no longer about recovery timelines or fight schedules. This is grief layered over trauma. And every time someone treats it like content instead of catastrophe, it feels disrespectful. When emotions are this raw, you can clearly see who truly cares, and who is just trying to survive the backlash. Then the comments from Turkey Alshik introduce fears of possible brain injury and long-term consequences, and the mood shifts from shock to fear, because brain scans change careers and lives. In that moment, the Paul brothers' earlier reactions look even worse, like they ignored the seriousness, or chose not to understand it. And somewhere behind the scenes, you can almost feel someone panicking, deleting posts, calling lawyers, scrambling. Reports confirm the crash. Anthony Joshua injured 2 people, believed to be close friends, tragically gone. Condolences pour in for their families. Showbiz the adult breaks down the details with a cold clarity that makes everything feel cruel. A stationary truck, a lane change, a normal moment turning fatal. Tragedy doesn't need villains to be devastating, but once suspicion enters the story, it never leaves. And with Logan Paul and Jake Paul already polarizing figures, the spotlight on them burns even hotter, ready to scorch. The accident happened around 9:30 a.m. local time. 2 vehicles, 2 lives lost, Anthony Joshua taken to the hospital with minor injuries. Witnesses describe him shaken as he was helped from the car. And what makes it unbearable is seeing footage of him just hours earlier, laughing, relaxed, full of life, only for everything to shatter in a single moment. The emotional whiplash is exactly why fans are enraged by anything that seems performative or careless, because this wasn't scripted drama. This was real life. And when the Paul brothers appeared detached, it felt like a betrayal of the unwritten code that fighters live by. Harsh? Maybe. But pain sharpens judgment. Breaking news: Anthony Joshua, future heavyweight Hall of Famer, was involved in a severe car accident that tragically claimed the lives of 2 people. He is seriously injured, but still alive. Footage shows people helping Anthony Joshua from the vehicle. The exact details remain unclear, whether it was a simple accident or a sudden loss of control. My condolences go out to the families of those who lost their lives. Hopefully, it was just a tragic accident, and Anthony Joshua receives the medical attention he needs. Scans, X-rays, MRIs, everything, because adrenaline can mask serious injuries like internal bleeding. We pray for his full recovery, and again, my deepest condolences to the families impacted. What unsettles me is how quickly narratives harden. One poorly timed tweet can outweigh 1,000 explanations. Logan Paul knows this. Jake Paul knows this. They built careers understanding attention, yet somehow, this moment slipped. Fans are now connecting dots that may not even exist, and once those connections form, they rarely dissipate, because grief makes people suspicious. Suspicion doesn't wait for facts to feel justified. I keep thinking about Turkey Alashik raising concerns about possible brain injuries. That alone should have silenced the noise out of respect, because brain trauma can end careers. Even the slightest impact on Anthony Joshua's future would amplify resentment toward anyone perceived as disrespectful. And I don't think Jake or Logan Paul fully understand how unforgiving fight fans become when a real champion, someone who has always carried himself with dignity, is wronged. This is my human perspective, not legal, not journalistic, just a fan who has watched this sport long enough to see storms before they hit. Right now, Anthony Joshua is surrounded by support, prayers, and quiet strength. Meanwhile, Logan Paul and Jake Paul are surrounded by noise, suspicion, and relentless questions. Until the full truth emerges, this tension will continue to grow, tightening like a storm about to snap, and no one knows who it will hit first. When I say Anthony Joshua's name now, it doesn't sound like a boxer, it sounds like a man carrying a weight nobody trains for. When Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren speak, you can hear in their pauses that this isn't business anymore. And when Joe Rogan goes silent instead of loud, you know the situation is serious. Every time Logan Paul or Jake Paul trend next to Joshua's name, it feels wrong. Two timelines colliding that were never meant to touch, and that alone fuels anger. Perception is already doing damage. Jake Paul's history, Logan Paul's history, everything is being dragged back into the spotlight. And it's not about fair or unfair, it's about how humans react to trauma. When Alexander Usyk, Chris Eubank Jr., Tony Bellew, and Liam Goss speak with empathy, they build a wall of respect around Joshua. Meanwhile, the Paul brothers are isolated by their past choices, and isolation in moments like these is dangerous.